conservative enough. And his response to me was, he's not a perfect man, but what I do believe, this is about Perry about Trump, is that he loves this country and he will surround himself with capable, experienced people, and he will listen to them. And he underlined that point, that he will listen to them. And as I toss it back to you, I will tell you that I asked him if he would be interested in being Donald Trump's running mate, and he said, I'm going to be open to any way I can help. I am not going to say no. Aaron.
All right, Dana, thank you very much. And out front now, John King, Chief National Correspondent, host of Inside Politics, Trump spokesperson Katrina Pearson, Mark Preston, our Executive Editor of Politics, and John Avlon, Editor-in-Chief of the Daily Beast. John King, this is a major standoff. Paul Ryan, as I said, highest-ranking Republican in the United States, not ready to support Donald Trump, coming out and saying it to the world. Trump, the presumptive nominee, says, okay, too bad.
Yeah, Aaron, I'm dating myself a bit, and I'm not trying to make light of this, but remember the old Saturday Night Live skit, "Quién es más macho"? That's what we have. That's what we have going on. Who is most macho? We have two leaders in the Republican Party right now. Donald Trump thinks he's the new leader of the Republican Party, and Paul Ryan is planting a very important flag tonight, seismic, as Dana said, in saying, I'm still the highest elected Republican in the land. And the question is, Donald Trump clearly was upset that Paul Ryan got out ahead of Donald Trump here and said, and Paul Ryan saying, I won't endorse you until I see if you're willing to accept our agenda. Remember how hard, Aaron, this is hard, when you get caught up in the moment. Remember how hard, not just Paul Ryan, but his team, and on the Senate side, how hard these Republicans worked to get the majority early in the Obama presidency, to build their majority in the House, and then to get the majority in the Senate. And many of them think it's all at risk with Donald Trump atop the ticket. This is not just about personalities. They look at the Trump agenda. They look at how Trump communicates, and there's great value in that. Some conservatives love it if they're in safe districts, but other people, where Republicans can lose races, are very, very nervous, and they're trying to see if Trump will come to them on the policy front.
So Mark Preston, what is this? The painful birth of a third party that we're starting to see, or Paul Ryan holding out hopes for his own presidential ambitions, or what are we actually seeing happen here?
Well, we're seeing a lot of different things come into play right now, but let's just piece this apart. The motivations. Did Paul Ryan do this because he himself is looking at 2020? Perhaps, okay?
Yep.
But Paul Ryan has been around for a long time. He is a Jack Kemp disciple. Now, Jack Kemp is basically the true conservative that had the compassion. He is the one who talked about helping the poor. He's the one about talking about cutting taxes. He's the one talking about going out to minority groups. This is basically the book that Paul Ryan reads every morning as he goes to work. So I think that deep down inside, look, Paul Ryan's looking out for himself down the road, but Paul Ryan is looking at himself through the eyes of Jack Kemp.
But at the same time, John Avlon, that may be the case, but you also have Donald Trump, again, sort of ending around. It's not as if he's going against all those things. This is a guy who's now saying he wants to raise the minimum wage. So you don't have this obvious, okay, he's turning against all, quote, compassionate items.
No, but
just not all conservative items.
But what you do have, though, is Paul Ryan is the opposite of Donald Trump in so many ways. He is a man of policy. He is a man of ideology, a man of philosophy, and a man who's fundamentally committed to governing. Someone who's really spent his entire life being part of the governing establishment. So at a place where Donald Trump is such an incoherent collection of policy positions that are united primarily by the fact that they happen to be held by Donald Trump, until what Ryan said that was important is, can he unite the party as a process of uniting the nation around being elected? Because personally and politically, Donald Trump and Paul Ryan are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
I mean, it's incredible. And Katrina, you know, Speaker Ryan says, okay, I will back you, Donald Trump, if you do certain things, and kind of setting something up like that. Perhaps it's no surprise that Donald Trump then came out and said, no way, I'm not going to do it. But here's exactly how Paul Ryan put it.
I thought, actually, this thing was going to go to June 7th at the very least, probably to a convention. And so this is all pretty new for us. But at this point, I think that he needs to do more to unify this party, to bring all wings of the Republican Party together, and then to go forward and to appeal to all Americans in every walk of life, every background, a majority of independents and discerning Democrats. And so, you know, I think conservatives want to know, does he share our values and our principles on limited government, the proper role of the executive, adherence to the Constitution? There are lots of questions that conservatives, I think, are going to want answers to, myself included.
So why wouldn't Trump wouldn't he go along with that agenda? Why would he put out and say, I'm not going to go along with that agenda?
because Donald Trump does not want to go along with an agenda where you spend $1 trillion. You have the Republican establishment that high-fived each other for spending $1 trillion. They talk about limited government, but the party hasn't been limited government for a very long time. The party talks about being
Donald Trump's going to
constitutional.
spend more money than anybody else has spent.
The party talks about being constitutional, but they haven't been constitutional for a very long time. The agenda that this Republican establishment is pushing is not what a lot of Republican Party voters don't want. I was there, Aaron, when we tried to fight to get the House back. I was there when we fought to get the Senate back, and they made me promise after promise after promise to do certain things, and they did nothing. Not only that, they did worse. They capitulated to everything and fought for nothing. That's the problem.
In a sense, though, is this something, though, that wins over people like Ted Cruz supporters? All of a sudden, you have the Republican establishment in Washington against...
Yeah, look, the credible card
Trump?
the Trump camp can play is the outsider versus insider card. That's totally legitimate. But it makes no sense to come and argue that Donald Trump stands for limited government and constitutional principles. The policies he has enacted or announced to date, which are relatively few, are not necessarily consistent with constitution or limited government, let alone limited spending. You can't make that case. We're talking about a police state and building walls.
We're not making the case for that. We're making the case
those are the policies your guys
want
backed,
something
period.
different. The people are tired of career politicians.
That's fine. Career politicians,
the argument here is you have somebody like Paul Ryan, you have somebody like John McCain, and you have the Republican establishment saying Donald Trump's not conservative enough. Well, guess what? Bush #1 raised taxes. He gave us the Clean Air Act of 1990, created NAFTA that Bill Clinton signed. Bush #2 eviscerated the Constitution with the Patriot Act, grew government in education with No Child Left Behind, grew it even further in health care with Medicare Part D. What does conservative mean?
Look, the point you're making about in specifics of the second Bush, interesting. Basically, boycotting is not...
I know it's early to say, but when you look at this, handicap it, Paul Ryan, Donald Trump.
Paul Ryan does not support a third party because Paul Ryan is raising money for Republicans. Paul Ryan wants to, whether Donald Trump wins or loses, he wants to be there. If Donald Trump loses, to pick up the pieces and try to move on to keep his House majority, to keep the Senate majority, and maybe down the road to run for president. So I think Paul Ryan was putting down a marker today, and Donald Trump was offended that Paul Ryan didn't wait till they met before having this break, if you will. Paul Ryan also made very clear, Aaron, that he would like to support Trump, that he wants to support Trump, and he's hoping that they can have a meeting, one is set up for next week, where Trump will come out and at least embrace most of the Ryan agenda, the principles of the Ryan agenda, and then they can say we agree to disagree on some other things.
And perhaps they'll get there. But a quick final word to you, Mark Preston. Why would Paul Ryan do it ahead of their meeting?
Listen, I think that, I don't know, because I think that Paul Ryan wanted to be the one who is in charge of the discussion, right? He wants to be the one out front.
Play the media.
Out front, play off words. But Aaron, here's the thing. I think Donald Trump missed an opportunity here today, right? And the opportunity was to take what Paul Ryan said and spin it back at him and say, you know what, I agree with Speaker Ryan. I don't agree with everything he says policy-wise, but I do agree we need to unite the party. I need his help in uniting the party. He didn't do that. I think that would have worked out better for Donald Trump than putting that statement out today.
All right. Thanks very much. You're all going to be with me, of course, and you can see Jake's entire interview with Speaker Ryan. We're going to re-air it tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern. Next, as we wait for Donald Trump to take that stage in West Virginia, here are his crucial comments for the first time when he's going to speak about Paul Ryan. Eric Trump, Trump's son, is with me to react to the breaking news. And I'm also going to ask Eric about this picture from Cinco de Mayo, plus another top Republican telling CNN tonight he cannot yet support Donald Trump. A live report coming up. And major breaking news on Hillary Clinton. A big development in the FBI investigation into her private email server is a huge development tonight, and we have the very latest on it for
you. Gin and tonic, please.
Magsisi. Kapag bilasa, etsepwera. Pag mapula ang mata, duda-duda. Dapat, makintabang kaliskis. Di yung tinatakpan lang ang dungis. Pag kinilatis, May bahid na pandaraya. Parang mga kandidatong sa una lang kaya-kaya. Kaya maging mapili sa darating na halalan. Hindi aksidente na ang salitang pili ay nasa pangalan ng ating bayan. Pili, Pinas!
Something worth doing is worth doing again.
I know what I can do. I know what other people could do better.
What would you say is your biggest achievement? What is the first thing that ran? What kind of a president would you be?
Breaking news, we are awaiting Donald Trump. He will be taking the stage in West Virginia on the screen that you are looking at moments away. Of course, perhaps going to respond to Paul Ryan's statement. Highest elected Republican in the country, saying he cannot back Donald Trump, and he is not the only one tonight. Arizona Senator Jeff Flake telling our Manu Raju he has a hard time seeing himself voting for his party's presumptive nominee.
Some of the position he's taken make it very difficult to support him. I hope that he changes. I hope that he backs off some of those. And then there's some sign that he will on the the religious test for people to enter here. I think he's finessing that. I'd like to see him go further.
What about on the wall with Mexico?
Well, I mean that's frankly just in the class of kind of nutty things.
Senior political reporter Manu Raju, you saw him there, is out front tonight in Phoenix. Now, Manu, Jeff Flake calling Trump's idea, especially when he talked about the wall, his words, quote unquote, nutty, something, by the way, though, a lot of Republicans support. What else did Flake tell you?
Well, I asked him specifically, Aaron, whether or not he'd get behind a third-party candidate the way other Republicans are, including Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse, who's open to the idea of a third-party candidate. Flake would not go there. He said that what Trump needs to do is unify the party, tamp down his rhetoric, change some of his policies to get his support. But, of course, if he does that, Aaron, that means he may anger his supporters initially. So a really difficult balancing act for Donald Trump.
And Manu, you've been speaking to a lot of people, including John McCain, who's defending his Senate seat this year, running for a 6th term. How worried is he about Donald Trump? Does he actually think Donald Trump could impact John McCain's reelection?
Yeah, he does. I asked him specifically about that. This is a state with a very heavy Latino population, and McCain believes that his record on immigration issues will be helpful for him come November. But he said there may be nothing that I could do, given at the top of the ticket how he has angered so many Latino people in his state.
It can't help if the majority of those who will be voting for the top of the ticket have been alienated or feel that candidate would not be in their interest, and that's the top of the ticket. I don't think you can ignore that reality.
Now, at the same time, John McCain is supporting Donald Trump, unlike his colleague, Jeff Flake. It really shows sort of the balancing act that John McCain is trying to do. He needs Trump supporters to come to the polls in his own reelection come November, but at the same time, he needs those Latino voters as well. Real challenge for John McCain going forward. He says to me, this is going to be one of the toughest races of my career. I'm going to work incredibly hard. He's facing Ann Kirkpatrick if he wins his primary, which we expect he will in the fall. Very difficult race, largely because of Donald Trump.
All right, Manu, thank you very much. And out front now, Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump. And Eric, good to see you.
Good to be here.
All right, we're waiting. Your father, obviously, going to be speaking in West Virginia. You just heard yet another Republican say it'll be hard to support your dad. Of course, the breaking news, House Speaker Paul Ryan, highest elected Republican in the United States right now, says he's not ready to back your father. What was your father's reaction when he heard what Paul Ryan said?
Well, when I heard it, I actually thought it was first of all, I thought it was a little silly, but I also thought it was a little benign. I mean, my father's become, he's a Republican nominee for exactly, 48 hours at this point, right? My father doesn't know these people. He's not a Washington insider, right? I mean, that's his whole thing. He's a business guy who stepped into politics, right? He's going to have to walk the halls with these people. He's going to have to get to know a lot of these people. So I thought it was very benign. I mean, again, it's been 48 hours. It's still sinking in. Everybody's still getting used to it. So I think that's going to come. I think it's going to come organically. I think it's going to come naturally. My father's he's always been a great unifier. He's going to pull people together. I can't tell you how long I spent in his office today and the amount of calls from, very, very powerful people, politicians coming into his office saying, listen, we're behind you all the way.
People saying they support him.
It was substantial. So listen, it's going to come around. He's going to unify the party. And I think at the end of the day, you see the masses, you see the amount of people that have been voting for him, right? I mean, 2-3 times what other primaries were. In fact, he has more people who have voted for him at this point than, any past primary, meaning the winners of any past primary, like Romney, et cetera, et cetera. So he's growing the Republican Party. People will unify around him. He'll unify around the Republican Party. I think it's just an organic process that takes time.
Look, you make a strong case, but, of course, you described Paul Ryan's comments as benign. But, they were unprecedented. I mean, you know, we've described them as seismic. I mean, your father did come out with a statement that's at this moment. I am not ready to support Speaker Ryan's agenda. In a sense, this is a standoff, though. Your father, the presumptive Republican nominee, and the current, Paul, head of the Republican Party.
You also have to remember that Paul also said the one thing that we will not, under any circumstance, allow is for Hillary Clinton to become president. Right? So it's interesting. Are
you worried that, though, is his nod to give me a third-party option?
As a non-politician, I really view this as, listen, you know, we've got to get to know the guy. It takes some time. He's fresh. He's very new. Believe me, the one thing my father can do is unify this party. He's already growing this party. We're going to beat her. I mean, and it's great. I mean, no one wants to talk about it, but it's so great that we're out ahead of the Democrats. You know, obviously Hillary's struggling with Bernie. She's struggling with this whole email mess. She's struggling with, obviously, the hacker that apparently got into the servers, right? She's got real problems of her own. It's great as Republicans.